The sirens blared across Medbay 4 as the emergency crew wheeled in the unconscious human, covered in sweat, his clothes sticking to his skin. The medic team leader, a tall, blue-skinned Archivian named Triel, barked orders in his native tongue, his 3 eyes darting between monitors. Heart rate spiking. Internal temperature at 40.3 degrees Celsius. Respiratory rate abnormal. Begin full body scan immediately. The crew scrambled. Tubes hissed as coolant systems engaged. A laser-thin diagnostic beam swept across the human's body, feeding data into Triel's translator pad. Species, Homo sapiens. Identifier, Orsen Vell. Assignment, Structural Engineer, Deck 9. Triel tapped his pad again. Symptoms consistent with febrile systemic collapse. We may be too late. Orsen groaned and stirred, blinking against the harsh ceiling lights. His throat felt like sandpaper, and his head pounded like a drum, but he waved weakly as he tried to sit up. Hey, what's with all the drama? I just need a couple of vitamin packs, and Triel pushed him gently back onto the bio bed. Do not speak, Orsen. You are extremely unwell. Your internal systems are in critical flux. We are initiating full stasis in 30 seconds. What? No. I just have a cold. I've worked through worse. I've got 3 conduits to reroute on the east corridor before shift end. Triel turned to his assistant, a violet-skinned Bellari named Jet. He's delirious. Begin neural dampening. We'll need to induce a coma to stabilize his weight, Orsen croaked, holding up a trembling hand. I'm serious. Humans get these all the time. It's just a fever. Give me a blanket and something hot, and I'll be fine by morning. Jet blinked slowly. He claims this is normal. Triel looked genuinely horrified. You're telling me this level of thermal imbalance is routine? Yeah, Orsen said, rubbing his temples. We call it a cold. You get the chills, your head feels like it's full of cement, and your nose turns into a faucet. Couple days of rest, maybe a few bad TV shows, and you're golden. Triel stared at him as if he'd just claimed to breathe acid. You work under these conditions. Sure, Orsen said, coughing into his elbow. Not ideal, but work doesn't stop just because your immune system's having a tantrum. Triel and Jin exchanged glances. This is madness, Jin whispered. He could combust internally if we misread his biology. Orsen tried to sit up again, pushing Jin's hand away. I'll be fine. I just need to recalibrate the main power node before Captain Haldren throws another fit. Trust me, I've had worse. Worse, Triel repeated. What could possibly be worse than this? Once broke 2 ribs falling off a maintenance scaffold. Didn't realize until the next day, Orsen mumbled, standing unsteadily. Just thought I pulled something. Triel's hands trembled slightly as he activated a containment field around the bed. You will not leave this facility. I will submit a level 5 medical lockdown if necessary. Orsen sighed and sat back down. Fine, but I'm not going into a coma for a fever. Jin hovered closer. May I take a sample of your mucus? This could be a rare pathogen. Sure, Orsen said, pulling a tissue from the dispenser and blowing his nose into it. Knock yourself out. Jet looked at the tissue like it was a live grenade before carefully sealing it in a containment vial and backing away. 2 hours later, Triel and Jet watched the sample cultures while Orsen sipped lukewarm broth and flipped through a translated maintenance manual. No cellular degeneration, Jet whispered. No necrosis. Just inflammation and elevated white blood cell activity. It's exactly as he said. Triel shook his head. He should have been incapacitated. In Yervian biology, his condition would have triggered organ failure in minutes. Yet he's reading technical schematics. Orsen sneezed. Sorry. Anyone got tissues? Used mine. Triel handed him a fresh packet with tongs. For the next day and a half, Medbay 4 operated on high alert. Orsen remained under observation, mostly to humor Triel, but refused all requests for sedation and insisted on working remotely from his bed. He completed diagnostics, reviewed schematics, and even coached a junior engineer through a failed junction repair via comms, all while coughing intermittently and downing cups of hot lemon water. Gent watched him work with a mix of fascination and terror. You are not afraid of this illness? Afraid? No. Annoyed? Absolutely. Orsen said, blowing his nose again. It's like being mugged by your own immune system. But your body is under attack. Yeah, well, that's the job of the immune system. Overreact to everything and make you miserable until it wins. Triel approached, tentacles folded in a posture of restrained disbelief. I must ask again. Why would your species evolve to tolerate such instability? Because we have no choice, Orsen replied. You ever try calling out sick during a New Jersey blizzard with no paid leave and a busted heater? Triel didn't know what a New Jersey was, but the tone implied horror. Later that evening, as Orsen dozed off mid-documentation, the medics presented their findings at a Bioadaptability Council meeting. The room was filled with representatives from 12 species, each more flabbergasted than the last. This human, Triel declared, entered our care with a core temperature that would liquefy a Zarnian's bone marrow. He described it as mild, continued to perform technical duties throughout, refused sedation, self-medicated with broth. The council chamber buzzed with concern. What if it spreads? Asked a pale, hexagonal-faced diplomat named Merlick. Is it contagious? No, Triel replied. It is self-contained, but the implications are staggering. Their biology embraces dysfunction. Merlick leaned forward. Could this be used against us? Weaponized? Triel stiffened. Their resilience borders on recklessness. If this is their reaction to internal inflammation, imagine their response to physical trauma. By the third day, Orsen's fever had dropped. He still looked miserable, but less like he was going to die and more like he was just really annoyed to be awake. See, he said, rubbing his eyes. Told you. Just a cold. Triel hovered beside him. You are. Recovering. Yeah, always do. Jen approached with a data tablet. We compiled a report. Your condition has become a case study in interspecies immune variants. Great. Glad my suffering's useful. Triel extended a long, gloved hand. You have redefined our understanding of human biology. Orsen shook it weakly. Just keep the broth coming. As Orsen dressed to leave, Triel offered a final scan. For documentation. And peace of mind. Sure, Orsen said, slipping on his boots. But next time, maybe don't try and put me in a coma for a cold. Triel nodded solemnly. We will. Reconsider our protocols. Orsen paused at the door. By the way, you might want to stock up on tissues. Cold season's just starting. Triel watched him leave, then turned to Gent. We are not ready for Earth. 3 standard days later, Orsen Vell stood in the docking bay's decontamination corridor, arms crossed, wrapped in a maintenance jacket 2 sizes too big for him. A faint rattle in his chest betrayed the tail end of his recovery, but he was upright, mobile, and by all human definitions functioning just fine. You're not cleared for rotation, came the gravelly voice of Dock Commander Siln. The Relaxian's frilled crest pulsed a dull orange as he blocked the exit with all 6 limbs outstretched. Orsen raised an eyebrow. I'm not contagious. Medbay ran every test in your book. Twice. You're flagged with a Category 4 bio alert, Siln replied. That's 1 below planetary quarantine. You breathed on a thermal sensor and it shorted out. That was 1 time. And I sneezed. Siln didn't budge. Behind him, a crate loader beeped impatiently as it waited for clearance to pass. 2 smaller crew members, a pair of lanky, translucent-limbed Nari, peeked out nervously from behind a cargo pallet, whispering in sim clicks too fast for Orsen's translator to catch. You're terrifying them, Siln said. I'm eating crackers and waiting for a shuttle. If that's terrifying, you need to reassess your shipboard training protocols. Siln's crest twitched again, this time in what Orsen had come to interpret as reluctant contemplation. He tapped a panel on the wall, grunted, and stepped aside. Fine. But if any of the coolant drones develop a rash, I'm reporting you to Fleet Command. Rashes aren't contagious, Siln. They're never mind. Thanks. As Orsen stepped into the main corridor, the 2 Nari gave him an unnervingly wide berth, pressing themselves flat against the wall like he was carrying a neutron bomb. He offered them a wave, then turned toward the lift platform. The ride up to engineering took 17 seconds, during which Orsen reviewed the latest status logs on his wrist screen. Power fluctuations in Deck 12. Environmental controls in Pod Bay 8 stuck on subarctic. And, somehow, the artificial gravity in Crew Lounge C had inverted for 7 minutes before correcting itself. The list went on. When the lift doors opened, he was greeted by a blast of hot, dry air and the unmistakable scent of melting insulation. A maintenance drone zipped past, trailing sparks. Orsen ducked instinctively and jogged toward the central console. He found Larn, a short, copper-scaled Volari technician, crouched beside an open panel, muttering into a diagnostic probe. Smells like someone deep-fried a capacitor in here. Orsen said. Larn jumped, banging his horned head against the conduit casing. You're not supposed to be here. You're still under microbial review. I signed out, Orsen said. Besides, I've got a backlog of repairs long enough to circle the moon twice. You should be in containment. You're still wheezing. Wheezing is just breathing with drama. What's the status on the thermal relay? Larn handed him the tool. It's fused into the casing. We tried to extract it, but the whole junction's warped. I think someone rerouted excess power through the subgrid. Of course they did, Orsen muttered, lying flat to peer inside the panel. You can't dump auxiliary load into a half-rated junction and expect it to behave. That's why we paged you. No one else wanted to get near it. Or you. Orsen snorted. Great. I become the ship's radioactive raccoon. They worked in silence for the next 30 minutes, sweat soaking through their uniforms as they replaced the relay and reinforced the casing with a double-insulated bracket. Orsen's cough only interrupted him twice, and both times he waved it off, insisting it was just leftover gunk. He was tightening the final bolt when the console lights flickered and a low, rhythmic tone echoed through the corridor. Larn's scales flushed a dull green. That's a code amber. Environmental breach in the galley sector. Orsen straightened up. They didn't override the airlock again, did they? They were trying to vent cooking fumes. Apparently someone smuggled in a jar of something called wasabi paste, and it triggered the emergency filters. Orsen groaned. I told them to stop using earth condiments in shared ventilation zones. You're really going to check it out? You're not even back on shift. I'm not letting 13 hours of repairs go to waste because someone couldn't handle horseradish. He jogged down the corridor, Larn trailing behind him. The galley was 2 levels up, and by the time they reached it, emergency shutters had sealed the entrance. Inside, a group of crew members were clustered around the containment field, coughing and waving their hands in front of their faces. Orsen tapped the override and stepped in. The air was sharp, pungent, and eye-watering. A half-empty jar of wasabi sat on the center counter, next to an unlabeled container of what looked like pickled eggs. Who did this? He asked, voice muffled through the collar of his jacket. A timid hand rose from the back. It belonged to a hulking, four-armed grunt named Beck, who had tears streaming from all 8 of his eyes. I thought it was a flavor enhancer, Beck wheezed. I didn't know it would attack the air. It's not toxic. It's just aggressive. Orsen picked up the jar and sealed it in a container. You can't use earth condiments without proper dilution. They said it was safe in small amounts. Yeah, on sushi. Not on bulk protein slabs. You basically pepper sprayed the galley. Beck looked genuinely confused. Why would you invent food that causes pain? Because it clears your sinuses and makes you feel alive. Beck sniffled. I don't want to feel that alive again. By the time the galley was aired out and the crew cleared, Orsen's cough had returned in full force. He leaned against the corridor wall, eyes watering, trying to catch his breath. You need to sit down, Larn said, grabbing a support strut to steady him. Just give me a second. I'm fine. You're not. Your hands are shaking. I've had worse. I don't understand how you keep saying that like it's a good thing. Orsen wiped his face with his sleeve. It's not. It's just how we're wired. We keep going until we can't. Then we rest. Maybe. That's not sustainable. Neither is this ship without someone fixing the coolant bypass by tomorrow morning. Larn hesitated, then handed him a hydration packet. Drink this. Slowly. And if you pass out, I'm dragging you back to medbay myself. Deal. They started walking back toward engineering, footsteps echoing in the now empty corridor. Larn adjusted his toolkit, antennae twitching. Do all humans push through illness like this? Not all. Some stay in bed, watch movies, drink soup. But when things need fixing, someone always gets up. You don't even have regeneration cycles. Nope. Just naps and caffeine. Larn looked at him sideways. I'm starting to think your physiology isn't the impressive part. Orsen laughed, then coughed, then laughed again. Glad someone's finally catching on. They reached the central maintenance hub just as the lights brightened to indicate the start of a new cycle. Orsen sat down on a bench, stretching out his legs and rubbing his eyes. From the far end of the room, a small drone hovered closer, chirped, and projected a message onto the wall. Fleet Health Authority inspection scheduled in 2 hours. All personnel subject to status review. Orsen groaned. Great. Now I've got to convince a health inspector I'm not a walking biohazard. You're not going to lie, are you? No. I'm going to tell the truth. They just won't believe it. Larn handed him a datapad. Then you better document everything, including the wasabi incident. Orsen leaned back against the wall, sipping from his hydration packet. Fine, he said, but if they try to put me in a stasis pod again, I'm jumping out the nearest airlock. Larn looked at him, deadpan. Noted. I'll bring the tether. Open your mouth wider. Wider. There. The inspection scanner beeped twice as Orsen gagged slightly on the tongue depressor, blinking under the bright lights of the Fleet Health Authority's makeshift clinic. He sat hunched on a collapsible stool, jacket slung over his lap, and a half-finished thermal patch still secured to his left forearm from the last hour's engineering sprint. Across from him, Inspector Vell adjusted the scanner's settings with a slow, deliberate movement that suggested he'd rather be anywhere else. Vell's species, the Harnecks, resembled gaunt, moss-skinned cranes with elongated fingers that moved like wind chimes in slow water. He tapped the results into a thin console hovering beside him. You remain slightly febrile, Vell noted. Your pulmonary readings are inconsistent with standard fleet parameters. Orsen scratched his neck. Yeah, because I'm not standard fleet biology. That's been established. Your heart rate spikes with minimal exertion, Vell added, not looking up. Your blood oxygen saturation is lower than optimal. Your hydration is marginal. These are disqualifying. I reassembled a snapped coolant manifold 2 hours ago in 40-degree heat with no ventilation. I think a little spike's expected. You should have been removed from duty immediately. I tried being removed. It involved an attempted coma and a room full of aliens wearing double gloves to hand me tissues. Vell paused, then slowly turned the scanner off. I have reviewed the medbay for incident. Your resistance to standard treatment protocols is noted. Orsen reached for his jacket. So I'm cleared. No, he froze halfway through one sleeve. Are you serious? I am obligated to certify you under subsection 12 of the Interspecies Health Accord. You are not cleared for unrestricted duty until baseline readings stabilize. But I'm not contagious. I'm not even coughing now. I just want to fix the leak in the gravity stabilizer before it fries the entire pod array. You are to rest. Orsen stared at him. You don't know what that means to a human, do you? It means ceasing all physical and cognitive labor. No, to a human, it means sitting still until guilt eats through our ribs and we find something to fix so we don't implode. That is not medically recognized. Neither is half the stuff that keeps us upright. Vell folded his hands and peered at Orsen with what might have passed for concern or mild aversion. Your condition reflects a wider problem. Anecdotal reports suggest your species routinely ignores early symptoms, delays treatment, and relies heavily on improvised care. This defies all logical protocols. Yeah, Orsen said, zipping up his jacket. And yet we're the ones who keep fixing that hydrolysis unit that your diagnostics team swore wasn't leaking. Vell blinked twice, slowly. That was not your responsibility. No one else was going to crawl through the vent shaft with a bypass valve in one hand and a flashlight taped to their head. That is because it was classified a Tier 4 hazard. Then upgrade our hazard rating. Or downgrade your expectations. Vell stepped back. This interaction has been logged. Your compliance will be monitored. Monitored how? A small, spherical sensor detached from the ceiling and hovered near Orsen's shoulder, glowing faintly blue. Orsen narrowed his eyes. You're tagging me with a floating snitch. It is a biometric observer. It will ensure you do not overextend yourself. I already hate it. That is not medically relevant. By mid-cycle, word of the observer had spread through engineering. Orsen couldn't move 5 meters without someone glancing at the device, whispering as if it might record their thoughts. It trailed him silently through task assignments, hovering like a bored ghost, adjusting elevation every time he crouched or stretched. In the lift bay, Keln from Systems Integration leaned against the wall, watching it bob alongside Orsen's shoulder. So what happens if you sneeze? Does it call security? If I sneeze 3 times in a row, it deploys a foam net and locks down the corridor. Keln's gills flared. Seriously? No. But tell that to the new guy in Deck 7. He ducked behind a service panel the second he saw it. Keln chuckled, then winced. Wait, are you even supposed to be on your feet? Don't start. Vell already tried to have me reassigned to bed-based administrative observation. I told him I'd rather be ejected into open space. You humans are confusing. Yeah? Try being one. Back in engineering, Orsen spent the next hour recalibrating the stabilizer's control relay. He worked with one knee propped on a coolant pipe, the other foot braced against the wall, the sensor orb quietly humming beside him. Every so often, it flashed a soft yellow and emitted a chirp, which Orsen ignored. By the time he finished tightening the final coupler, his sleeve was soaked with condensation, and his back ached from leaning too far over the access panel. He slid down and sat against the wall, wiping his face with a rag. The orb chirped again. "Oh, don't start. I know I'm sweating. You want to try crawling into the guts of a stabilizer with half a sinus left?" The orb chirped twice, then pulsed red. "Stop judging me." He leaned back and closed his eyes for a moment. Just one, maybe two. The pressure behind his temples had returned, pulsing faintly like a warning light. He wasn't dizzy, not really, just stretched thin. A soft voice spoke near his ear. "You're not doing yourself any favors." He opened one eye. Jen stood beside him, holding a sealed hydration pouch and a thermal wrap. "Let me guess," Orsen muttered. "Triel sent you." "No. He's still cataloging your mucus at the bioarchive. This visit is voluntary. Should I be honored?" "More confused than honored. I wanted to observe you in your natural environment. I'm not a zoo exhibit." "You're not one." Orsen sighed and took the hydration pouch. "You ever seen a healthy human?" "No figures." Jen crouched beside him. "Why do you keep working? Even now?" "Because the problems don't stop just because I'm tired. But your body is telling you to stop." "I stopped listening to it in my 20s. It wanted me to sleep more and avoid fried food. Look how that turned out." "You're not well." "I'm not broken, either." Jen watched him for a moment, then nodded once. "You're functional." "Barely, but functional." High praise. The orb flashed yellow again. Orsen threw the rag over it. It beeped in protest. "You're going to get written up," Jen said. "I'll frame it." Later that cycle, Vrell returned with a final evaluation form. Orsen skimmed it while munching on dried nutrient bars that tasted faintly of lemon and regret. "You are to remain under periodic observation," Vrell stated. "But your core metrics have stabilized sufficiently to resume modified duty." "Modified how?" "Shorter shifts. No vent crawling. Mandatory hydration." Orsen raised an eyebrow. "You really think that's enforceable?" "I think it's optimistic." He signed the form, handed it back, and stood slowly. "Well, I'm going to the rec bay. Not to relax, just to fix the busted console." Someone rerouted the gaming grid into the main comms again. Vrell hesitated. "That's not authorized." "It's not unauthorized either." Jen appeared behind him, holding a toolkit. "I'll go with him." Vrell stepped aside. "If you collapse, I will be submitting a complaint to Earth Command. Get in line." As they walked down the corridor, the orb followed, still blinking, still humming. "You really going to fix the console?" Jen asked. "Yeah," Orsen said. "Then I'm going to sit down. Not because I'm told to. Just because I earned it." Jen nodded. "That's progress." The orb chirped. Orsen didn't even turn around. "One more beep and I'm stuffing you in a storage crate." The orb went quiet. They kept walking.